Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor, and on this channel we talk about life and relationships after leaving the church and do some commentary on the goings-on in evangelical Christianity. Have you guys noticed the recent uptick in supposed demonic activity? I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like everywhere I go on the internet lately, someone is talking about demons. This obsession with the diabolical seems especially prevalent among Christian content creators.
Did a demonic creature just shapeshift at a Kamala Harris rally? This disturbing clip has been going viral where a guy with dreads behind Kamala at one of her rallies in Las Vegas has his pupils go completely missing. If demons are showing up to her rallies offering their support and endorsement, that should be an indication in itself that this is not a candidate that God has appointed at all. Use your free will to vote wisely in this election.
I feel inclined in the spirit to say this. Some of you've had a hard time with church and people have hurt you, and maybe it was people that were demonic, because demons go to church too.
When somebody one time came to me and asked me that they don't agree with me that a Christian can have a demon, I asked them a question. I said, can a Christian open the door to a demon? They said, yes. Then I said, then Christian can have a demon.
There's different opinions on the topic of autism. Yes. And this person says, I work with children who are autistic. Can you speak about this in times where you have seen success with deliverance and autism? If you've seen deliverance and autism.
We're going straight for the controversial ones. Yeah, I can't wait for all the clips on YouTube.
And I'll clarify this. There are different ways to attack different things that are going on. Yes. And this person is saying, I'm mindful that it's not always demonic, but have there been times where you've seen success with this?
100%.
Of course, it's not surprising that Christian content creators talk about demons more than their non-Christian counterparts. After all, demons are a part of the theology of many Christians. Many believe them to be fallen angels who joined Satan in his rebellion against God and are capable of tormenting or even possessing human beings. Some Christians experiencing misfortune or adversity point the finger at demons or even Satan himself rather than looking for rational explanations. That being said, demons and Satan haven't always played such a central role in the lives of Christians. It actually wasn't too long ago that American Christians had a very different conception of the demonic. According to polling data, only 37% of Americans believed in the literal devil in 1964. At that time, many viewed Satan and demons as a metaphor for the wickedness of human beings. However, over the next few decades, more and more people began viewing Satan and demons as literal entities. By 2013, 57% of Americans believed in the literal devil. Some scholars, like Dr. Joseph Laycock, suggest that classic horror movies featuring themes of demonic possession and satanic cults, like The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, and The Omen, had a lot to do with changing attitudes about the demonic. I find this compelling because even 50 years after its release, you'll still hear Catholic exorcists recounting details of their supposed exorcisms that sound eerily similar to the possession and exorcism of Reagan in The Exorcist.
This guy was in the air, both feet were in the air, his entire body was in the air. I could see the wall beneath his feet.
I've heard stories of rooms getting colder, getting hotter. Have you seen anything like that? Have you also have you seen anything sort of floating across the room yourself? Have you seen any of those sorts of supernatural occurrences?
A coffee cup come off my desk and go flying past my face and smash against the wall.
Of course, I'm sure exorcists will insist that horror movies draw from real-life exorcisms and not the other way around, but in my opinion, this doesn't account for the relatively sudden shift in attitude of Christians and the church. Like, why the sudden fascination with demons only after the success of The Exorcist and similarly themed movies? If you're interested in learning more about how horror movies shaped America's religious landscape, I highly recommend checking out the lecture series that Drew produced with Dr. Joseph Laycock. They go over each film in the unholy trinity of horror movies and how each left its mark on American Christianity. A link to these lectures will be down in the description. So let's go back to Christian content creators. While horror movies certainly increased belief in the demonic, I'd argue that just in the last few months, we've seen an even bigger boom in what I'm calling demonic obsession. I actually think this demonic obsession might be a new, or rather renewed, evangelistic tactic, and it's epitomized in Tucker Carlson's recent story about being mauled by a demon while sleeping.
I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled. Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah.
While Tucker Carlson isn't exactly a Christian content creator, I mean, you could argue that he's kind of a political influencer. Over the last few weeks, actual Christian content creators have used his story for React content with colossal success. In today's video, I'll look at Tucker's story with a skeptical eye, examine the reaction to his story from a prominent Christian content creator, and discuss why I think evangelicals are now using supposed demonic activity as a tool for evangelism. Before we continue with the video, let's talk about something that'll definitely get Tucker red in the face, and that's vibrators. You all know that on this channel we think sexual health and wellness is important, and I'm so grateful that it's also important to the sponsor of today's video, Hello Nancy. Hello Nancy is on a mission to remove the taboo associated with self-pleasure and make it approachable and fun for everyone. Their Beginner Bliss bundle is specifically designed with newbies in mind, but even those who aren't new to the world of toys will find themselves reaching for this bundle again and again. There are 2 toys in this Beginner Bliss bundle, which is the Uno and the Lem. The Uno has a simple and sleek design that's great for beginners. Its lower vibrational speeds are perfect for anyone who wants to try something a little bit less intimidating, but you're also able to increase the speed to what works for you. I also love the color, and its unique design allows you to have more control over the toy. You can just hold it like this, it kind of perfectly fits your finger. The Lem has become one of my absolute favorite toys. I love clitoral section toys, and it's such a great bonus that it's shaped like a cute little lemon. When I first saw it, I actually thought it was one of those like egg-shaped makeup sponges. I love that it's like so discreet. No one could really tell what it is unless they got a lot closer to it. Both the Uno and the Lem are very quiet and discreet, are water resistant and made with body safe silicone, and come in this gorgeous pink packaging that includes informational cards with fun tips and tricks. Hello Nancy has an exclusive discount code for my viewers. If you use my code ANTIBOT25, you'll receive 25% off your purchase at Hello Nancy. With the holidays coming up, I think it's the perfect time to invest in you or your partner's sexual wellness. All right, thank you so much, Hello Nancy. Now back to the video. For those of you who don't know who Tucker Carlson is, first of all, lucky you. Tucker Carlson is a conservative political pundit who gained significant notoriety during his time as a host for Fox News. He was fired from Fox News in 2023, but has since started his own podcast called The Tucker Carlson Show. His podcast ranked as the #1 news podcast of 2024. So back a few weeks ago, Holy Wisdom Films released a sneak peek for their upcoming documentary called Christianities. In the clip that was shared in the sneak peek, Tucker Carlson is interviewed by the documentary's host, John Heers, about his encounter with a demon. The clip ended up going viral on social media. Heers and the film's director, Scooter Downey, are both Orthodox Christians. The stated aim of the documentary is to explore the many faces of Christianity by talking to faith leaders of different Christian denominations. On its surface, the documentary actually sounds pretty interesting, but after looking at it a little bit more closely, it's clear that the documentary is not only apologetic in nature, but might actually be a propaganda film on behalf of the Orthodox Church. According to its crowdfunding website, so this was listed on the crowdfunding website and not on the website of the actual film itself, the film explores how Christianity persists despite the rise of secularism and paganism, and how the ancient capital F faith offers something much more profound than the shallow expressions of Christianity in pop culture. It also says the film underscores the transformative power of individual encounters with God, and that Christianity shouldn't be understood as a set of beliefs, but as a genuine union with God. You'll know this this if you watched my recent video on Christian nationalists' newest enemy, that uniting with God and individual experience are of particular concern to orthodoxy. Some Orthodox Christians, like far-right and frankly white supremacist writer Rod Dreher, are currently on a mission to imbue Western Christianity with mystical traits from Eastern Orthodoxy. We'll talk more about this later, but I believe stories of encounters with demons are one way Orthodox Christians are attempting to influence the rest of Christianity. All right, so with that background information out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into Tucker Carlson's demon story.
Do you think the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good?
That's what happened to me.
That's what happened to you?
Oh yeah, I had a direct experience with it.
In the milieu of journalism or just?
Nope, in my bed at night, and I got attacked while I was asleep with my wife and 4 dogs in the bed and mauled. Physically mauled.
In a spiritual attack by a demon?
Yeah, by a demon. Or by something unseen that left.
Is that right?
Claw marks on my sides, on my...
So it left physical marks?
Oh, they're still there. Yeah. A year and a half ago.
Okay, so let me get this straight. When this happened, Tucker was sleeping in bed with his wife and 4 dogs, but it didn't cross his mind that the claw marks could have come from the dogs. It must have been demons. I mean, unless Tucker declaws his dogs, which you absolutely should not do, it's pretty reasonable to assume that the dogs could have done it. Supernatural explanations like demons don't make sense when you have naturalistic explanations like literally right in front of you. Also, if he supposedly still has the claw marks, why doesn't he show us? Just lift up your shirt and show us the proof, Tucker. God, that sounds so gross. Okay, just pretend I didn't say that.
Was your wife terrified? I know you were.
I wasn't. I was totally confused. I woke up and I couldn't breathe and I thought I was going to suffocate, and I walked around outside. And then I walked in and my wife and dogs had not woken up, and they're very light sleepers. And then I had these terrible pains on my rib cage and on my shoulder, and I was just in my boxer shorts, and I went and flipped on the light in the bathroom, and I had 4 claw marks on either side underneath my arms and on my left shoulder, and they're bleeding.
Again, there are rational explanations as to what happened to Tucker. To me, this seems like a case of sleep terrors or night terrors accompanied by sleep paralysis. Although sleep terrors happen less often to adults, they can still happen, and common side effects include confusion and difficulty breathing. It's also fairly common for those experiencing sleep paralysis to see strange creatures they believe to be demons. People literally call them sleep paralysis demons. It can feel like you're being held down by some malevolent entity, and those claiming to be woken up specifically to a demon suffocating them are well documented. I mean, your brain can come up with some wild stuff when you're asleep, and that's especially true if you're already experiencing stress or anxiety. I mean, when I was younger, I experienced some mild sleep paralysis. I never experienced hallucinations, but I'd wake up and be unable to move for like a minute or two. This is something that almost everyone experiences to a certain degree. A few years ago, I was taking melatonin before bed and started experiencing pretty terrifying nightmares. Apparently, nightmares, especially those where you see people's faces literally melting off, are a common experience for those taking melatonin. Now, I take a medication before bed that's an antidepressant, and it's almost impossible for me to have any nightmares. Nearly all my dreams are pleasant. I say all this to illustrate how brain chemistry can radically affect your sleep. What's baffling to me is that this information about sleep terrors and sleep paralysis is readily available online. Like, did it ever cross Tucker's mind to, I don't know, just do a quick Google search? I can't help but feel that Tucker is being willfully ignorant here. Call me conspiratorial, but I think Tucker and Holy Wisdom Films know that demon stories are a hot commodity. Any chance they have to peddle a narrative about supreme evil tormenting innocent Christians must be capitalized on.
Wait, they were bleeding?
They're bleeding, yeah. No, actual claw marks. And I sleep on my side, so I wasn't clawing myself. I don't have long nails. And they didn't fit my hands anyway. But yeah, that happened. So I'm not from a world where things like that happen. I never heard of anything like that happening before. I had no idea what that was. I knew it was spiritual immediately.
You did? Okay, that was gonna be my question.
Yeah. I don't understand to this day. I'm not gonna put it
You didn't try to refute the spiritual part in your own mind. You went right into the
Well, it
idea.
didn't make any sense, and it doesn't now. But I'm not from a, what do they call it, faith tradition that talks about things like that or even acknowledges their existence. Like, there's nothing like that. I've never heard anybody say anything like that in my whole life.
Pardon my French, but this is just bullshit. You're telling me that a man who's spent his entire life in conservative politics, which is filled with those from the Christian right, has never heard of demonic attacks? I don't buy it. While in the past, Tucker has identified as Episcopalian, which is a denomination that's largely socially and theologically liberal, and perhaps it's true that this particular faith tradition doesn't typically believe in demonic attacks, that doesn't mean Tucker hasn't been steeped in more extreme Christian views for years. Just because Tucker belongs to a faith tradition that doesn't acknowledge the demonic doesn't mean he's never heard of it. It also seems to me that Tucker is recounting his demonic attack with the knowledge that his interviewer is an Orthodox Christian. As I said previously, personal experiences of the supernatural realm, including encounters with demons, are significant in Orthodoxy. It's like Tucker knows what his interviewer is looking for and he's giving it to him. It also should be noted that earlier this year, Tucker traveled to Russia to interview Russian dictator Vladimir Putin. Before this interview, Tucker had defended Putin and disseminated pro-Russian propaganda about the war in Ukraine. Tucker threw mostly softball questions at Putin during the interview, even purposely avoiding certain topics. And while in Russia, he reportedly marveled at the beauty of Moscow and praised the Russian infrastructure. Most Orthodox Christians live in former Soviet countries, like Russia. Putin has unequivocally embraced the Russian Orthodox Church as a primary characteristic of the Russian people and culture. According to George Demokopoulos, a professor of theology at Fordham University, during an interview for the Pew Research Center, Putin, and by extension the Russian Orthodox Church, are popular among many non-Russian Orthodox because he has increasingly positioned the Russian government as the lone political protector of Christians in the Middle East. Moreover, he and the Patriarch of Moscow are increasingly contrasting the language of traditional values with the secular ideologies prevalent in Western Europe and the United States. Thus, many Orthodox Christians living outside of Russia see a powerful Russia with a resurgent Orthodox Church as a positive for global orthodoxy. So it's really no surprise to me that Tucker is now embracing and seemingly propagating the more mystical aspects of Orthodox Christianity, which is a form of Christianity with ties to the Russian state. In my opinion, this upcoming Christianities documentary is likely not only apologetic and propagandistic, but also yet another attempt by the Russian government to influence the American populace. What's scary to me is that on its surface, this documentary seems like it's just exploring the various forms of Christianity worldwide from a neutral standpoint, when really it's meant to persuade its viewers of the veracity of orthodoxy.
What was the next day like?
Well, the next morning I woke up and I thought, that was the weirdest dream I've ever had. And then I saw blood on my sheets and I realized that was not a dream at all. So I called my assistant, who was like the only evangelical Christian I know, well enough to call with something bizarre like that, totally bizarre like that. And she said, oh yeah, no, that happens. Yeah, people are attacked in their bed by demons. What? What are you even talking about?
Again, I call bullshit. First, it's absurd that Tucker would only know one evangelical well enough to call them. I mean, he's spent his entire life in conservative politics, which is filled with evangelicals. Second, instead of looking at the possible rational explanations, Tucker immediately believed the most outlandish explanation and called someone who would reinforce that explanation. Third, he feigns ignorance about demonic attacks. Like, he's heard about that before. None of this makes any sense. It's almost like he's telling a fictional story that serves a larger narrative.
So, I mean, I'm not leaving anything out, and I'm not pretending to understand that. I can only say what happened to me and that did happen to me.
Oh, Tucker. Bless your heart. We can tell that you're not trying to understand anything.
And then I was seized with this very intense desire to read the Bible, which I then started without any study aids or anything. I bought a Bible that didn't have any. I'm not interested in editorializing in the Bible. I just want to read it and see what's in there myself. I have very low levels of trust for Christian pastors, most of whom, I'm just not a fan at all. And sorry to say that, but that's how I feel. And so I don't want to hear other people's opinions. I just want to see what's in there. And so I spent a year and a half reading it, and then I started rereading it. And it was just a transformative experience for me, but I'm not, holding myself out as someone from whom you could get theological advice, because I'm not. Of course. I don't know. I don't understand any of it.
I mean, reading the Bible for yourself and not just blindly trusting the opinions of others is generally a good thing. However, I think what he's saying here has an apparent Orthodox bent. As I understand it, the Orthodox Church upholds the mystery of God and the supernatural. It teaches that God and the supernatural realms aren't something you can know through rationalization, but instead through experience. Here, Tucker says multiple times that he doesn't understand what happened to him, but did nonetheless experience it. In other words, a mystical experience set him on a path of spiritual transformation. As we saw in my video on Christian nationalists' newest enemy, this is the exact type of experience Rod Dreher wants Western Christians to have. Not only do these experiences validate Rod's Orthodox views, but they also carry with them the social and political conservatism that dominates Orthodoxy. So, did Tucker actually have this experience? Or did he manufacture this experience to serve an Orthodox narrative and bolster political conservatism? Will Tucker Carlson soon publicly convert to Eastern Orthodoxy for political alignment? I would not be surprised.
But yeah, that happened.
God allowed the demon?
I have no idea what happened. All I know is I was dead asleep with my wife and dogs, and I woke up with claw marks on my rib cage underneath my arms, and it didn't even make sense. My arms would, anyway, whatever. No one has to believe me, I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
But that happened to me, and so I just was like, wow, that's real. Whatever that is, I'm even not sure what it is.
It's
but
very real. And so then that presence of that evil launches something.
For a third time, bullshit. Tucker knows plenty of people will believe him, especially his large base of evangelical followers. The only people who won't are people like me. And what negative impact can I realistically have on the most prominent news personality in the world? Left-leaning YouTubers like me are literally fighting against a billion-dollar industry, which is why support from our viewers is really crucial. I'd encourage you, if you're able, and only if you're able, to support your favorite creators on Patreon. I know that they'd really appreciate that right now. Anyway, notice how this clip ends with John Heers asking Tucker if he believes God allowed this demonic experience. I think this is purposeful on John's part and reveals the newest tactic in his evangelistic arsenal. We'll revisit this thought at the end of the video, so stay tuned. For the next section of the video, I'd like us to examine the reaction to Tucker's story from a prominent Christian content creator. The Christian content creator in question is Cameron of Capturing Christianity, and the video is titled An Exorcist Reacts to Tucker Carlson's Demonic Attack, featuring Carlos Martins. Carlos Martins is a Catholic exorcist who's recently made the rounds on conservative Christian YouTube. I'm gonna bring Drew on for this next section, and we'll be reacting unscripted to a few clips from Cameron's video.
How common is it for demons to leave physical marks on people in your experience? Well, if they decide to physically attack and they have permission from God to do so, they certainly can. It's not unusual for those who are experiencing a direct demonic attack. And that would be, such an attack would be what we call a vexation. Tucker Carlson appears to have been vexed. A vexation is a physical attack from the outside, or it can be a mental attack from the inside, where the individual is attacked briefly. Claw marks, a coffee cup being thrown across the room, a painting falling off the wall, maybe a second one following, perhaps a third. They're brief physical attacks when they're physical. They can be brief bursts of anger at somebody, an embarrassing comment that you had no intention of saying, but they're over briefly. They're kind of instantaneous attacks, and they may never happen again.
So my initial thoughts after watching this is a lot of what he's describing when someone, I guess, is undergoing a vexation, which I guess is different than a possession. I don't really know how that works, but a lot of what he described sounds so similar to horror movies to me, because he describes the coffee mug flying across the room, the painting falling off of the wall. Like, that's tropes that you see in horror movies. And like I said in the intro of this video, I'm sure that exorcists like Father Carlos Martins would say, well, horror movies are just imitating real life. Horror movies are copying what people like him, what exorcists, what people who have been possessed demonically have seen. And so that's why there are similarities.
Yeah.
But I mean, in the research I've done and from the scholars that I've read, that doesn't really seem to be the case.
Yeah. My take here is that, okay, yeah, let's assume that everything that Carlos Martins is saying about, the reality of demon attacks and vexation and stuff, let's say all of it's true. All right. Does the fact that demons can do these things actually make it somehow more likely that demons did do this and that it wasn't just one of Tucker Carlson's dogs?
Yeah.
The logic I'm seeing here is that because demons can do this, demons did do this.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to investigate, a crime or something like that, you don't convict every potential suspect. You don't convict everyone that doesn't have an alibi, right? Like, just because someone could do it doesn't mean they did do it. So, yeah, even if demons can do this, you still got to figure out if you can rule out the dogs, man.
Yeah, it's like you're saying, even if we know 100% that this is how demons behave, just because coincidentally Tucker's story sounds similar to stories of demons doesn't mean that's actually what happened. There has to be more evidence than just, oh, it's correlation, not causation kind of thing.
Yeah.
I also like how he's talking about how it can be like a physical attack or it can be a mental attack. And then he gives an example of someone saying something rude and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, it was a demon. It's like, I feel like that kind of just gives people an excuse to just say whatever, like batshit crazy or like be super mean to people and then be like, oh, sorry, it was a demon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he says that they didn't fit his hands, he didn't have nails, he was sleeping on his side, so he couldn't actually reach around and like claw himself. Does that indicate to you that it couldn't have been from maybe even the dogs? He's mentioned that the dogs were on the bed. Could it have been himself? Like, could he have, accidentally scratched himself and just not been aware of it? Is demonic vexation the only possible explanation here? What are your thoughts?
I mean, assuming that Tucker Carlson is being honest, right? Assuming all other things being equal, then what he states, I think, is reasonable. The fact that they don't fit his hands, he didn't do it to himself. The dogs didn't do it. His wife didn't do it. They were all still asleep. I think if you're going to take that at face value, I think the only reasonable explanation is the fact that you had a vexation. Now, maybe for me, that's easier to believe than for most people because this is the world in which I have functioned. So the fact, look, it took great courage, for this man, for Tucker Carlson, with the profile that he possesses, to go on the internet and say this and risk looking like a fool. And to many individuals, he will absolutely be a fool for having done this. This is saying something. So I think we have to take him at face value. Now, the fact that the devil, again, all other things being equal, looking at this as a vexation, the fact that the devil made the claw marks a different size than Tucker's own hand, and the fact that the other individuals in the house were kept sleeping, in other words, this was a soundless attack, is him leaving his very calling card and saying, there is no other explanation than me.
What?
Okay, I'm assuming you have a lot of thoughts here, so...
Yeah, you can go ahead if you have any before I list some things out.
I mean, first of all, they're just taking Tucker Carlson's story at face value. Like, he directly says, okay, I'm taking it at face value. Why would you do that? Why would you automatically assume, especially someone like Tucker Carlson, who has been shown to have lied about stuff before?
Yeah.
Why would you just take him at face value and just believe his story?
Yeah.
And obviously okay, here's another thing. I didn't include this because Cameron's video is a bit long and I only wanted to include the stuff that was important to this video. But would you be surprised to hear that Carlos Martins has a book coming out about exorcisms and possession?
No, I mean, that's one of the reasons why he goes on Cameron's channels to promote his books. So
it's like, of course you just believe what Tucker Carlson is saying. Of course you believe it was actually demons because your literal career depends on you believing that.
Yeah.
You have a book coming out about demons. You're going to take any type of demon story and run with it, obviously.
Yeah.
And then my third thought is they just say, oh, it wasn't the dogs. And like offer no explanation at all to why it couldn't have been the dogs.
Right.
They just say, oh, we know it wasn't the dogs. How do you know that?
Yeah, like they're like, oh, the dogs were sleeping. Yeah. Puggles goes like this in his sleep.
Yeah.
There's 4 dogs in the bed. Yeah, they could probably could do that.
Sharp nails. Like
he scratched you before.
He scratched me before and it's bled.
Yeah.
Like that seems like especially 4 dogs. You're in bed with 4 dogs. I'm assuming that bed is very cramped. It's very reasonable to assume that the dogs did it.
Yeah. Okay, I just want to talk about taking Tucker Carlson at face value again here.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson lied about election claims. Mm-hmm. That's one of the main reasons he got fired from Fox News. He's also literally a white supremacist.
Yeah. He likes...
That should matter to you guys. Like, that should matter to you a lot. And, like, the fact that they're just like, oh, yeah, we should take him seriously here. We should think that he is probably being honest and that it's brave to do this. He's getting views to do this. He's like, there's a whole documentary like crew talking to him about it. He gets to tell his primarily Christian audience about this. Like, what are you talking about? That it's brave? I mean, Cameron, it's not brave for you to make this video. They got way more views than the ones you usually make.
Yeah.
Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
How can you take this seriously?
I mean, of course Tucker Carlson knew that there were going to be people that didn't believe him, but like people like us, the majority of his following is just going to take everything he says and run with it and not like consider whether or not there's evidence supporting it at all.
Yeah.
Like he knows that his huge base of followers are going to believe what he says.
Right.
Like he's not taking any sort of risk with this. He's not jeopardizing his show in any way. If anything, this is bolstering his show.
Yeah.
Because demon stuff makes for a lot of clicks.
Right.
But all of this goes to show you that the engineer of all of this is not the devil. The engineer is God. Whenever the devil attacks, it is only because he has the express permission of God. And why would God do that? Well, look at what it's done to Tucker Carlson. It's turned him more towards a God. Certainly more than what he was, right? It began him on a faith journey. The man has been touched and he's pursuing God. And that event in and of itself, what he has found in God, has given him enough courage to go online and give this disclosure, for which I applaud him. Again, took great courage.
Okay, like, no, it did not take that much courage for him to say that. It's very much in line with something that Tucker Carlson would say.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that... It's almost like they're acting like this man, like, came out of the closet or something.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, he's so brave. It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, when something is difficult to do as a public figure, that is when that thing goes directly against your own interests, and it goes against the interests of the power structure which is upholding you, or power structures just generally in society. I mean, Tucker Carlson abides by what basically white Christian nationalists, who are typically billionaires, want the public to hear.
Yeah.
He says the things that people like that want him to say. I mean, he's gotten to be like the #1 news podcaster in the world, like of all time, by doing exactly this type of stuff. And we're not thinking even for a single second that there could be another motivation here.
Yeah.
I mean, what is this? What are we doing?
Yeah, this is wild. Also, when you're saying that demons don't attack unless they have the express permission from God, because God uses those experiences, I guess, to spiritually transform an individual. My thought is, well, why does God have to use something like that? Something that's obviously going to be extremely traumatic for the individual if they genuinely did have an encounter with a demon. Why does he have to use that to get someone on like the path to faith? And also, there are people who start on a path of faith who don't have those experiences. So it's just like, I don't understand the logic of it.
Well, let me put it this way. God's mind is up here. Our mind is down here. How would you possibly expect to be able to understand what's going up here on this level when you're down here on this level? So you really can't question God in this. Okay, now let's listen to some people who are down here on this level tell you what they know about God. Okay, let's play the video.
So yeah, one really interesting thing about this clip is that he mentions that he like went immediately to the Bible. He says some other interesting things, like he didn't really want to read commentaries at first. We can talk about that maybe. But the thing I want to focus on is like, why do you think that he immediately went to the Bible, especially since we learned that he didn't really have this strong faith background?
Well, it was exactly that. He didn't have a strong faith background, but that attack hit him as a demonic attack, right? So he knew that he was targeted. No one else in the room was targeted, and nothing else was targeted but he alone. He was singled out. I'm in the crosshairs of the enemy, and I don't have the resources to face this attack. So he went into the direction where his mind and heart immediately led him to the Word of God. So I need something that only God can give me. I need to pursue him. And this is the story that has played out since the fall of man, where we intuit being attacked and we seek God whenever that attack happens. And it may not be diabolical, but just the fact that our own vulnerability, our own weaknesses hit us. And then we seek strength. We seek divine assistance in God's word, right? This is the human story. It has played out since the dawn of man.
Okay, so even though it does kind of seem like it's the case that Tucker Carlson wasn't or hasn't been a regular churchgoer, he wasn't somebody that maybe regularly read his Bible. That does seem to be the case from what I've been able to research on this, but that doesn't mean that he hasn't been steeped in Christian culture for like the majority of his life.
Yeah, I mean, he's a creationist and evolution denier because of religious reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been in conservative politics for the majority of his career.
Yeah.
So, like, and that's filled with evangelicals. So, I mean, whether or not he is physically going to church, if he's physically opening his Bible, he's still taking on a lot of those ideas and culture of Christianity from his surroundings. So it makes sense that when he has this experience that he can't explain, his thought process would immediately jump to, oh, it could be there could be a spiritual explanation to it. That's assuming that this experience that he had was even real to begin with.
Yeah.
Which I am willing to guess that this is just a made up story.
Like
because he
almost
knows
all stories that Tucker Carlson tells.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like them saying like, oh, he wasn't like a faith, I can't remember what exactly they said, but he wasn't a faith-based person or something. It's like, but you're like negating the fact that he like has been inside of a Christian culture.
Yeah.
For, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, someone who hadn't been in conservative politics, but just lives in the Western world would probably go to the Bible. If they think they have some kind of religious problem or spiritual problem, they're going to go to the thing that underlies our culture when it comes to spirituality.
Right.
The most popular source of like spirituality or wisdom or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the Bible.
And
now,
if Christianity is the dominant religion in the United States.
Right. Now, if someone was in, let's say, like Lebanon, and they're, not particularly religious, but they live in like an Arab community, something like this happens to them. Are they going to go to the Bible? There's a pretty good chance they're going to go to the Quran. Yeah. Or they're going to go at least to like a sheikh or something like that and talk about this. If something like this happens to someone in India, they're probably going to go to, a Hindu leader or a Buddhist leader, like to tell them about this kind of thing. Like, there's more to this. There's more like factors, more moving pieces to this than just like this straightforward narrative that Carlos Martins is painting here, which is obviously self-serving.
Of course. And the thing he was saying about how since the dawn of man, humanity has gone to the word of God. First of all, Christianity is like a relatively new religion.
Yeah.
I will agree with him that I think that humanity, I guess, if you want to say from the dawn of time, has probably looked to divine or supernatural explanations for things that they don't understand.
Yeah.
I'll give them that. But that is a lot different than saying since the dawn of man, people have like opened the Bible to find answers.
Yeah.
The Bible didn't even exist then.
Or even like consulted with the Abrahamic God or the Christian idea of God. It's like, that's just demonstrably not true.
Yeah. Okay, so we've established that stories of demon attacks are becoming more prevalent and that Christian content creators are more than willing to promulgate these stories no matter how unbelievable they may be. But why? What's their end game? I think the answer to that lies with both John Heers and Carlos Martins' assertion that demonic attacks bring people closer to God. It's undeniable that Christianity in America is waning. A 2022 study from the Pew Research Center shows that Americans are becoming increasingly religiously unaffiliated, meaning that more and more people are identifying as nothing in particular when asked about their religious affiliation. So despite evangelistic efforts to spread the good news to more people, a smaller percentage of Americans identify as Christians today. Christians like the host and director of Holy Wisdom Films know this. Rod Dreher knows this. Tucker Carlson probably knows this. These Christian nationalists, or those who falsely believe that America was founded as a Christian nation and seek to turn America into a Christian state, know this, and I think are developing new evangelistic tactics to change America's current religious landscape to Christian hegemony. As a former missionary kid, I was taught to emphasize God's love when evangelizing. Yes, we told people that they're sinners who need to accept Jesus to avoid eternal damnation. Still, we did so by emphasizing a message of love. I think that today, Christian nationalists realize that this hippie Jesus and message of love isn't as effective as they'd like. So what's more effective than a message of love? A message of fear. And what strikes more fear than demons, the most definitionally evil entities to supposedly exist? For most people, it's easier to remember negative experiences over positive ones. It's thought that this is an evolutionary defense mechanism that allows us to avoid possible future danger. When Tucker tells his story of scary dreams and scratch marks and then connects this experience to demons, he suggests to his viewers that their bad dreams, which almost everyone experiences at some point in their life, could be the result of demons. A supposed encounter with the demonic isn't something you forget. It's traumatic. Many will seek to heal their trauma and will turn to those claiming to be the only way to find true healing. In other words, people like Tucker Carlson and John Heers are saying to people, yes, your night of bad dreams is because of demons, but don't worry, if you do what I say and turn to God, you can be delivered from these demons. Sorry, I have to hold Piggy on my lap because he will not stop walking around, so I guess he's going to be here for the rest of the video. When John Heers asks Tucker if he thinks the presence of evil is kickstarting people to wonder about the good, I can't help but notice the similarities between this question and how some Catholic priests framed The Exorcist. In their book, The Exorcist Effect, Dr. Joseph Laycock and Eric Harrelson outline how The Exorcist was actually a Catholic rebuttal to the film Rosemary's Baby. Spoiler alert, but in Rosemary's Baby, Satan wins. The satanic cult is successful in bringing forth the Antichrist. At the end of the film, Roman Castevet, one of the film's antagonists, declares, "God is dead! Satan lives!" Some Catholic priests were disturbed by the ending of Rosemary's Baby, and they sought to make The Exorcist a clear case of good prevailing over evil, and had sway over The Exorcist author William Blatty. In their book, Dr. Laycock and Eric Harrelson write, these priests wanted to remind the public that both God and demons really existed, and they influenced how Blatty articulated the message of his story as a statement about the mystery of goodness. At the time of its release, Catholic priests reiterated this message. John Nicola, a priest who served as a technical advisor for The Exorcist, said, "The devil's greatest asset is the doubt people have about his existence. If this movie makes people more aware of the supernatural or spiritualism, of the possibility of possession, it will do great good." It should be noted that Nicola later changed his tune after some theater goers experienced mental health challenges as a result of the film. I see conservative Christians and the Christian Nationalists' current obsession with the demonic as reflective of the Exorcist effect, except this phenomenon isn't happening in movie theaters, but on social media. The goal is, however, the same. Talking about demon attacks will hopefully scare people back into the church. So really, this isn't exactly a new evangelistic tactic, but rather a renewed tactic. So what do we do about all this? Well, I wish that I had an answer for you. I mean, how do you battle a group that's willing to weaponize fear for their religious and political aims? All I can do is continue making videos like this, where I share my thoughts and hopefully provide my audience with some educational resources. Hopefully, at the end of the day, I've positively impacted the world, at least in a small way. And that's really all I can hope to do. Thank you guys so much for watching, and a huge thank you to my patrons who help make these videos possible. If you like this video, please be sure to subscribe and ring the bell. If you'd like to follow me on social media, my Instagram is Taylor_the_antibot. And if you'd like to support this channel financially, a link to my Patreon will be down in the description, and we'll see you on the next one. Say bye. Oh, maybe I should do the other foot.